of the drama that ended up happening over at Wendell Mcphee's. The situations with the people in that, like Toby Smith and Sandy Fromm, you know what? None of that should have had anything to do with me. But I got a lot of recordings about that situation. Now let's talk about Wendell Mcphee versus Brian Schwartz. When me and Wendell Mcphee have a difference of opinion or a disagreement, Wendell and I are both people who love to learn. We want to know. We want to know something, not just believe. We both understand that after years and years and years, sometimes there's information that you might have had that's out of date. We both understand that after years and years, something that they might have told you is true in the 1980s, well, it may not actually be true. Or something that you seem to think you remember. What do me and Wendell Mcphee do when we have something like that go on? Sometimes he'll have a song that's from when he's growing up, and he, at the time, I'm sure knew exactly what band it was. I'm sure when he was growing up, he knew exactly what band it was. And I'm certain that I didn't know what band it was at all. There was no way that I was going to be able to figure it out. I'd heard the songs before, but, well, instead of just assuming he's right, he's curious. He wants to know. Now, he's sitting in a chair literally right next to me. We're both in the same room. We have the technology at our fingertips. And rather than doing what my dad does, which is argue at me and snap at me and tell me to sit down and all sorts of other fucking mean shit, anything but listen to what I have to say or look at the evidence I'm trying to show him, anything but that. But when he'll look it up right there on his phone, I'll look it up right there on my phone. A lot of the conversations that me and Wendell have that are recorded, there's two things going on. Number one, he's watching old westerns, so you can hear the old westerns in the background. And number two, you hear us talking about the situations, looking things up. You get to hear both me and Wendell Mcphee admit that we were wrong instead of being stubborn like a fucking cow. Oh my God, you ever try to move a cow when it doesn't want to move? Let's say it's a hot day and that cow decides that it's going to wander its way into a thicket. It's going to stay in that fucking thicket and it's not going to come out. It knows it's heavier than you. It knows it's bigger than you, and it knows that you can't get that truck in there to honk at them. That cow's not fucking moving. Not till it gets thirsty. On a hot day, that cow might decide that between getting something to drink and staying in the shade, it's going to stay in the shade, and it's not going anywhere. My dad, my older brother, and my mom are all three that way. They are stubborn like a bull, stubborn like a goat, stubborn. When they think something, it must be true because they thought it. With my mom, she knows better. Out of all three of them, my mom is the one who will argue something she knows isn't true just because it benefits her. Whereas my dad would rather remain ignorant. My older brother would rather remain ignorant. I was on Pearl Street one time, and my older brother wanted to argue with me and argue over the barrel of a gun. He thought it was made out of titanium. I'm like, Eric, no. You cannot believe that every Browning M2 HB or every Browning M2 period has a titanium barrel. It doesn't. Now, there's a possibility that there might be titanium composites in the barrel. That's a possibility. There's a possibility that it could have maybe a titanium or a titanium powder coat. Not likely, but it's possible. But when I looked it up, it actually had the metal composites that were on there that apparently the Browning M2 HB barrel is supposedly made out of. The actual metals, the actual amount, and he was even saying, what temperature you're supposed to cook it at. That's right. The barrel is cooked. They actually put it in an oven and they cook it. Now, my brother, he didn't want to look at that. He just wanted to insist that they spent millions of dollars to send people out to go fish something out of the ocean that was really deep because there was a bunch of 50 caliber barrels on it. No, Eric, they didn't. They're not going to do that for a couple of... You ever seen a Browning M2 that sat in the water, sat in the ocean for just a year or two? They don't look good, and that includes the barrel. When it comes to the cost of titanium, no, titanium is not so expensive that people are going to spend literally millions of dollars to send a trawler out there and a bunch of divers and the whole crew for the ship and the whole crew for the dive team to go out there and get a couple of barrels for 50 calibers. It's just not going to happen. My older brother, when I looked it up, he was laying on the grass over there by the library, doing what he usually does, laying on his ass, doing nothing, arguing with people. His favorite job, his favorite thing to do. And he decided that he was going to get up and try to challenge me physically. That's the Eric I remember. The Eric Christopher Schwartz that all growing up, 2 + 2. If I didn't say 2 + 2 is 5, he was going to beat me up. If you can't win the argument, he'll beat you up. That's the moral of the story with Eric Christopher Schwartz. I'm his brother. He's allowed to beat me up. Domestic assault is all right. Domestic abuse against an at-risk adult is acceptable because nobody's going to listen to that at-risk adult. Now, there's special laws to protect at-risk adults from like this, aren't there? And you guys keep telling me about those, don't you? Kind of like you keep telling me to call the same places I've already called. But none of you called them with me. The few people that have called them with me have verified things that I said about those places are true. The few people who helped me for a little bit of time to make phone calls to try to get something accomplished, that's the only time that anything ever got accomplished. Do you know why that is? Because I wasn't having to do it by myself. When you have to do it by yourself, you're more likely to get blown off. Your situation is more likely to be ignored. With the Natalie Bollinger situation and the way that I was treated by law enforcement before she was killed. God, I lost my coffee. That's not cool. For me, having to go back to those law enforcement agencies to be treated the same way, to go to my friends and say, hey, this is how I'm going to get treated if you don't go in with me. Oh no, Sean, they can't do that. No, they do that. It's not just my experience. I've recorded the experiences of many people on my YouTube channel. My predators wanted, after, of course, all this time of these people knowing what was going on and saying nothing and doing nothing, claiming that they were going to help me, wasting my time, wasting my resources. And you know, I speak out on my YouTube channel for a reason. If these people won't hear it, I'm still being abused. I'm still trying to stop the abuse. I'm still going to speak out. You want to talk about your privacy? What privacy? When you do things like what you did to an at-risk adult who you profess to love, how can you love them if you're going to look away from their abuse? If you're going to tell them they just have to take it? All these people who actually work in the system, who I've got recorded telling me they're not going to do their jobs because they'll lose their jobs. Or, of course, always passing it off. It's always somebody else's job, someone else's responsibility. Like when I'm told to turn the crimes that are committed against me, I'm supposed to turn them into my caseworker, right? Who are my caseworkers and what did they do when I told them? I'm supposed to tell my caseworkers because they're supposed to help me to turn this in. They're supposed to help me with this court stuff. When I am being abused, someone needs to be there and present and be involved. Now, first, they tell me it's not their job. Then I show them that it is, and their supervisors tell me that it is. And I explain to them, I've already spoken with your supervisor. Your supervisor says something different. You know, there's a few steps that go through that. Let me give you Jen Beebe, for example. She was supposed to help me. Then she couldn't because of jurisdiction, couldn't because of this, couldn't because of that, was gonna, knew it was her job, and then, of course, she didn't. She didn't even try doing her job. Even court ordered to do her job. She ignored me for 6 months. Her boss, Teal, said they had to do an investigation on Jen Beebe. I told her I didn't need Jen Beebe to be investigated. I needed her to do her job, and she hadn't done her job. Then Jen Beebe, of course, after she's supposed to help me with all this stuff and promises that she's gonna, tells me that she's gonna assist me with these things. Then, magically, after all this time that I've been told that I have to go to Jen Beebe about these things and she's supposed to help me to turn them in. And then all that time later, what did she tell me? I gotta get a subpoena. I have to get a subpoena to get her to do her job. Are you fucking kidding me? This is why a parent or guardian needs to be involved, needs to make those calls with you, needs to try to understand. Wendell Mcphee, you know what? To some degree, he tried to understand. When it came to my life being threatened by Sandy Fromm, I asked him what he would do if Sandy was threatening his life like that. He said, "Oh, I take death threats very seriously." Or I take threats very seriously. Well, that's not much of an answer, is it? But in itself, it is an answer. Sandy Fromm was stalking Toby Smith. Actually stalking him. This is a big belly badass biker who ended up having an aneurysm. So he can't ride a bike no more or none of that. He can't take care of himself. And he's got to be afraid of Sandy Fromm coming in his back door with a shotgun or one of her dad's rifles and fucking blasting him. Yeah, this big belly badass biker went to the sheriff. This guy who's against going to the police, who was mad at me because I went to the police instead of using his contacts who had actually hurt people. I don't want people hurt. Are you kidding me? A lot of drama happened at Wendell Mcphee's. And also a lot of drama happened and continued to happen because Wendell Mcphee didn't want to get involved after he was already involved. With Sandy Fromm continuing to come over and him continually bitching about her. Like, oh my God, dude, that drives me nuts. Like with everybody else, Wendell Mcphee wanted to talk about his own problems, wanted to talk about himself and a lot of other things that I'm not willing to release because here's the thing. Most of the stuff recorded with Wendell Mcphee is not the world's business. It's nobody's business. When he's talking about his family, that's got nothing to do with the situation with me and Sandy Fromm or his involvement in that situation. What his family has to say about the situation, or what he has to say about his family, that's not something that I'm willing to release. Now, there are situations, if Wendell Mcphee were to claim that the things that were in those recordings did not happen, well, of course I'd release them. I'd have to. I'd have to show that I'm telling the truth, instead of giving him the opportunity or the benefit of the doubt, which Wendell Mcphee still does get. The situations in town, that small town especially, where opinions matter more than facts and popularity is what declares your opinion worthy or not. We're talking about KKK territory. We're talking about an area where being a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girl will get you pretty much whatever you want, including beaten up a lot. Those Midwest farmers' daughters, they're 70% more likely to be abused by one of their parents or siblings. 70% more likely. When I say half the girls in my graduating class told me they lost their virginity to their dad, not literally all of them lost their virginity to their dad. One of them lost her virginity to her grandpa. Another one lost her virginity to her brothers. When I say brothers, it's because she couldn't remember which one got her first. This ain't an easy thing to deal with. Then there's people like my dad. My dad doesn't want to look anything up. He's one of those idiots who, when I'm trying to explain to him why I'm being abused, what I'm being abused over, that these things are resulting in harm, that he needs to look at it. He needs to look at what the police are doing. He needs to look at these things and actually be a father, actually stick up for his family. Wendell Mcphee will absolutely fight for his family, thank goodness. Will Zach fight for his? I don't know. It's pretty obvious that his daughter is being abused and she's not being heard. It's pretty important that you guys recognize the signs of abuse. When somebody is cutting on themselves, that's a sign of abuse. You see that as they're mentally ill. Only people who are fucked up in the head would cut on themselves. No. They need that attention. That attention is not just for attention's sake. With Zach's daughter cutting on herself, is it Zach who's doing that? Is he a father figure like Andrew Witcher, who's going to get all fucked up on meth, touch his own kids? Wendell Mcphee would look stuff up. I look stuff up. I like to be informed. I like to know what the fuck I'm talking about. And if there's a legal precedence that has been set, then that legal precedence does need to be brought forth in court. It does need to be presented. And public pretenders are not up to the task. If they don't do their job, there are recourses. That's the thing that, of course, my dad wants to argue about. I need to do it myself. Well, when I do it myself, because of the mentally ill tag, it makes it their word versus mine. They're allowed to victimize the shit out of me, and that victimization includes false imprisonment, locking me up to prevent me from turning them in. Now, my intent to turn them in was very loud and very clear, and it was on my Facebook, and it was on my YouTube. My intent to turn these people in, and evidence as well. My dad wants to tell me about the safety issues and risks for him, how he wants me to change it, how he wants me to do something about it. Well, you helped to create this situation to begin with. You can either help me or you can look the other way. But the fact that you were already involved is, well, not something that we're going to argue about because you were already involved. I can prove that you were already involved. I can prove that I was at your house. In your own words, I can prove that. Wendell Mcphee, there's a lot of stuff he just didn't care about. See, he wanted to tell me about all these other people in town and all their issues and so on and so forth. He wanted to tell me his opinion about all these situations with me, but wouldn't hear my side. Anytime that I tried to speak up or defend myself against his opinions, he'd just say, I don't care. Almost everybody did that. I don't care, I don't care. Oh, you got an opinion that you're passing judgment on me for that's based on bullshit, and you're going out of your way to literally not look at the evidence that is bullshit. You're just going to pass judgment on me without looking. That's what my dad's afraid of. He doesn't get how afraid I am to talk to him. How afraid I am that he's going to twist things into something they're not. How afraid I am that if I don't record the situation, he'll make it his word versus mine, just like every predator does when you are called mentally ill. They try to use that excuse. Oh, bipolar, 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 schizophrenic, 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 delusional, delusional, delusional. Are you sure? See, here's how I was able to get Dr. Urata to take a look. He said, you know what, you've come into my office and you say the same thing. You're consistent. He said, you know, I know what the other doctor was told about you. And see, here's something that all those doctors in the prison were pissed off about. They were told I was schizophrenic, but there was no diagnosis of schizophrenia. They were told that I was delusional. But then they didn't see any evidence of delusions. Imagine that. Why? Because Scott DaCosta wanted to lie. And of course, there's evidence from many people in town that Scott DaCosta was running around telling them I was schizophrenic. Somehow, magically, that justifies their crimes or makes their crimes not exist. Just like former Denver officer or Denver deputy William Barr tried pulling the same thing. Just like Officer Amanda Jonas of Boulder County, Longmont. did the same thing. Our only hope as disabled adults is for people to get actively involved. My dad seemed to think it was the government's job, and the government, you listen to all them agencies, they seem to think it was my family's job. Matter of fact, that's one of the questions they asked. There's like 5 questions that they asked that are all bias-based that determine your eligibility. Does anyone give a fuck? If nobody gives a fuck, neither do they. Moral of the story is, if you rape somebody nobody gives a fuck about, it's okay. The law is not going to pursue it. The law doesn't care. If a police officer rapes you and nobody cares, they can just slander your name and it magically makes their crimes go away. Now you're a horrible person. They're using the mentally ill tag to pretend like that officer did not rape you on the hood of his vehicle. Well, guess what? Me and Wendell Mcphee looked that up. Sure enough, that woman was called mentally ill. Thank goodness somebody else actually listened. Somebody else who knew her actually cared enough to get involved. Clearview. I told y'all what Clearview was doing a year before Tony Kovaleski. What did it take for somebody to do something about that? It took one of the patient's fathers actually giving a shit. Nobody listens to the fucking patients. We are all assumed to be guilty of something. We are all assumed to be liars, all assumed to be hallucinating. It's just assumed by the hospital staff, especially in a behavioral health unit where they're not actual hospital staff. They're 7-Eleven rejects and Walmart rejects. Wendell Mcphee, if he'd actually given a shit about the rest of it, well, he would have been a very powerful ally because he would have looked at it right there with me. We were in the same room, same chairs, like maybe a foot and a half between the 2 chairs. If you look something up on his phone, he could show it to me. If I saw something on my phone, I could show it to him. A lot of times we'd both have the same question about something we were discussing, and we'd both look it up and see which one was the fastest usually. But between arguing and looking it up, Wendell Mcphee was a lot more likely to look something up. Between yelling at me and snapping at me or looking something up, he was more likely to look something up. Now, yeah, sure, he did blame me for a few things that were not my fault that he didn't look into. He didn't bother to look into because he didn't want to hear it. Same thing with Dallas. There's a lot of fucked up situations that I was put into because of Dallas and Harley, but they didn't want to hear it. There's a reason that there are situations with Harley and Dallas that are recorded. They're a part of my story. They're a part of the situations that I was forced into. Because people would rather tell you what to do and give you advice than actually do something to help. They'd rather argue with you and tell you, oh, it won't do any good if I tell the truth. It won't do any good if I tell the truth. It won't do any good if I make a police report. Really? You know why it won't do any good? Because you're not trying. You're making zero effort. I told the good things that these people did, and you get to see the difference in how I talk about them. The things that I recorded in the conversations between them and I on YouTube here show that I told the truth every step of the way. They show that this help that these people provided or claim that they provided. I admitted to those things when they happened and who it was that did it. But they never came forward about it. They never made police reports. I tried explaining to them how it was going to work. The cops were just going to pretend like I wasn't trying if they didn't come forward and help. It was going to be a situation where it was their word versus mine. And that can't happen when you have an at-risk adult. We are their bread and fucking butter, especially when we're homeless males. If they want to murder somebody, they're a lot less likely to kill a black man than they are to kill a disabled person. They're over twice as likely to kill a disabled person. But they're over 100 times more likely. That's right, over 100 times more likely per capita to kill a homeless person than a black person. That is pretty substantial and quite significant. Most of the numbers that BLM keeps spouting at us, most of those numbers come from homeless black men. But you get to see how even the homeless black men are not pushed by BLM. And why is that? Because nobody cares about the homeless. Nobody cares about the homeless. If they say, hey, look at this homeless black man who has been repeatedly victimized in New York City by the cops over and over and over again. Are they going to do that? No, because people look at that man and they automatically assume that because he's homeless. All of these horrible things that we've had to listen to in our lives, things that the KKK wants to tell us about black people and tell us about Jews, and tell us about Mexicans, and tell us about Indians, all that stuff. And of course, it's wrong now. It's not politically correct to blame the Jews. It's not politically correct to blame black people. It's not politically correct to blame Mexicans. But it is still politically okay for you to take it out on the homeless. You say, oh, well, you know, he's out there because his own family doesn't care about him. He probably deserves it. You've already assumed and passed judgment. You haven't bothered to see that person as a human being. You have already decided that they're not. That their story isn't worth hearing. When you have piddly-ass problems, I remember Josh Martindale throwing a fucking huge tantrum over a truck that he got stolen from him, from the guy that he bought it from. And I felt bad for Josh Martindale. Just as I felt bad for Loretta when my Uncle Greg did that to her. The whole, all right, well, you bought it, but I'm taking it back. Well, that's pretty fucked up. And I remember Josh going off for a good long while about that. That was a big major deal to him. Now for Loretta, was getting that car back a big major deal despite the fact that she had paid for it? No. You know why it was not a big major deal for her? Because my uncle tried to fucking blow her head off. She was in that vehicle. He ran into the back of her vehicle, smashed all the windows in it. That's how hard he hit it. Ray Malk was in the passenger seat. He got out of the vehicle and ran off down the street. Loretta Sparks was sitting in the driver's seat. It was her car. She left my uncle. She didn't want to date him anymore. He was abusive and she was done with it. So she took her car and left. Except my uncle didn't sign the title over to her. She had paid for it by his own admission to me. She had it already completely paid off. He was pissed off because she left him. So after ramming into the back of the vehicle and Ray Mott got out of the passenger seat and ran off, my uncle, he tells me where he was standing with his .22 long rifle. And I go and stand there. This is in the garage out at the farm. It used to be owned by my grandpa. So I'm out at the farm. I'm looking at this busted ass vehicle, busted windows, and 2 bullet holes. And I go stand where he tells me that he was standing. And I'm looking at those 2 bullet holes and there's a headrest right behind him. My uncle wasn't trying to scare her. He was trying to blow her fucking head off. He didn't even serve 8 months. Attempted murder, and he didn't even serve 8 months. He destroyed her vehicle. Now, why is it that Josh Martindale, well, he went off for almost 3-4 months. Every time I saw him, every time he spoke, it was always about how Mark's an asshole and stole his vehicle and he was never going to get over it. You know how many times Loretta has given me any indication that she ever gave a shit about that car? Yeah, the car doesn't make any fucking difference when you have had a real traumatic experience. Ooh, you got ripped off for a car. Well, at least the guy who ripped you off didn't try to fucking blow your head off while you were in that fucking vehicle. And these people who go off on fucking hissy fits and tissies over fucking menial and trivial shit when somebody is going through real trauma, well, you tell them they just need to get over it. You tell them that they're acting irrationally. You don't listen to what they have to say. You interrupt them over and over and over again. And the more you do that, the more scared they are to speak. And also, the more they know that you're going to interrupt them again. So they try to get out as much information as possible. And a lot of it comes out jumbled. You fucking flustered that person and they need you to listen. And they are trying to get you to listen. But you just simply do not have it in you to shut the fuck up. You can't stop talking about you. Or you can't stop talking about everybody else in town. Wendell Mcphee, well, Sandy Fromm didn't just tell him that she tried to pay somebody to kill me. She told him who. He's the one that let me know. And I got it recorded with her admitting it. She also admits the name of the guy that she was trying to hire to kill me. Now, I'm pretty sure that with her trying to do that and him not saying nothing, that is probably against the law. So Tim, whatever his last name is, I'll have to go through the recordings. It's something you get to hear from me a lot. I have to go through the recordings. I can't do that from that thing. I cannot go through all the recordings from inside of my vehicle when my computers need to be plugged in to even function. And then people keep trying to give me expensive solutions. Hey Sean, why don't you rent a hotel room for a few days? You think I got the money for that? I mean, let's just take a look at the bills that come right off the top immediately. I only get $800. Only about 600 of that is, well, 550 of that is actually usable. The rest goes to pay expenses. And then, of course, there's the fact that it costs more than that to live on. When people hook me up, they say to get them back when I get paid, and I do. I pay them back when I get paid. For Wendell Mcphee, he may not have wanted to hear about the situation, but he definitely got to hear more than an earful. He also looks stuff up. If this stuff happened to one of his kids, you goddamn right, Wendell would do something about it. Oh. He'd do something to try to protect his kids. He would do something to try to protect his family. He wouldn't treat them like they're complete and total shit for trying to get help. He would actually sit down and look at the evidence without arguing. He would try to understand. He would listen. He would act in a caring manner instead of being sharp and harsh and bullying. He would actually listen. If one of his kids come up to him and said, "Dad, people are threatening to kill me and threatening to kill my loved ones," Wendell Mcphee would do something about it right then and fucking there. He would find some way to do something. What would my dad do? Well, we'll have to look at his history. What did my dad do? What choice did he make? Keep in mind that the choice to look away is still a choice. The choice to take advantage of your own son is still a choice. The choice to yell at somebody who is a victim, who is overwhelmed, who is trying to get help stopping ongoing abuse. The last thing they need is more abuse out of you. The last thing they need is for you to pretend like they must be in the wrong without ever looking at evidence, without making any effort to do what you said you were gonna do. Well, I was at my dad's in 2019. If I'd have had the ability, I should have recorded every single moment of that. Now, the places that I was able to record, well, they show that I told the truth about those situations. With my dad, while I was there, I did not record him. I should have. I did not record how he treated me, and I should have. After everything that he did, after him not keeping his word, after him breaking it repeatedly and being as abusive as he could possibly be, well, he broke the agreement. When you don't keep your end of the bargain, the other person is under no obligation to keep theirs. The fact that it's a subservient environment and I just had to take the abuse is horrible. If I'd have had my own place, I wouldn't have had to be subservient to predatory individuals. Sometimes you don't think about how one person can make all the difference. Now, Marcia Estrada, you got to hear her opinion of Tamara. And that opinion is fine, but the fact is Tamara was the one person to actually try helping me how I needed. She and I formulated a battle plan, and we implemented it. We needed to get me on disability, get the developmental disability paperwork taken care of, and have a caseworker assigned to help me turn in this shit, because you have no idea what it's like to be stalked by a bunch of fucking crackheads. Wherever you go. Harassing you on the internet and in real life, threatening to kill your fucking family. And then these people pretend like I'm that guy, like I'm the one threatening people's families. Abso-fucking-lutely not. Danica Garner and Alicia Bollinger, after all the head game bullshit that they pulled, and all of the people that they got involved in fucking threatening, harassing, intimidating, and assaulting me. You know, that's organized stalking. That is organized crime. But because Alicia is pretty, even the cops committed felonies for her. Even the cops committed felonies to hide her crimes and the crimes of her family. Over and over again. Repeatedly slandering me themselves. Going out of their way to pretend like I'm schizophrenic to justify their sins and their crimes. between evidence and pushing the mentally ill thing, what did they choose? They chose to push only the mentally ill thing. And then, of course, I'm too mentally ill, according to them, to be able to have my evidence looked at or to make a police report. But I'm not mentally ill enough for the rights of somebody who is disabled. And they keep jumping back and forth between that, whatever suits their purpose, whatever suits their wants. Meanwhile, I've researched the law on this. Yes, these are felonies, just like going out of your way to misrepresent a situation, especially using your position of power, the way the judge did, the way that Leslie Snell did, the way that Scott DaCosta did, the way these people abused their power to help each other get away with committing felonies. No, it's not legal. And anybody who wants to argue that it is, you're a fucking idiot. There's a lot of people that they got to hear one of the situations where a cop said something like, well, you know, the cop said it himself. Yeah, and that very same officer said the opposite just 6 months ago. So we got to ask ourselves, why is it there's discrepancy in what that officer is saying? Why is there so much of a variance in the law depending on what time of day it is, what time of year it is? Why is it that the law magically changes so often and so frequently and so drastically that I can't turn in my predators, but my predators can slander me and have me harmed for it? They can have me prevented from going to court. They can manipulate the situation so that I'm not allowed to even show evidence or face my accusers. All I was trying to do was turn in my predators, and that's what I'm trying to do to this day. With Wendell Mcphee and Dallas Richmond and many others being part of the situation where I was victimized, for them knowing that I was telling the truth about these situations and taking advantage of me repeatedly because of them, knowing that I couldn't do these things myself, not looking at the evidence that I'd already tried, just telling me over and over again, oh, this place is supposed to do it and that place is supposed to do it. Really? How about you stop telling me that? How about you listen to what those people told me? Yeah, I know it's their fucking job. Yeah, I know that they lied to me, but you don't fucking care. And I'm called mentally ill, so they just pretend like none of it happened. Wendell Mcphee did not lose his rights to privacy because he didn't break the law. Well, he did, but not in the same way. I do believe that if Wendell Mcphee was taken to court, that he would tell the truth. I believe that Wendell Mcphee does want to be a good man. He does want to do the righteous and honorable thing. My dad, well, I would hope that he's going to actually try to help me, but chances are pretty good he just wants his name taken down. He was a part of the situation. I'm not going to pretend that he wasn't. Anyway, it's getting close to when Brian Schwartz was supposed to call me. And it's looking like he's just going to waste my time. Again. If he wants to hide things, that's on him. Don't tell me anything you're not willing to tell the police. And if the police won't listen, keep in mind I'll go public with it. So you got two choices. Either it goes public, which you didn't want, or you help me take it to the police. Pretty simple. This channel isn't for your entertainment. My Facebook and the evidence on it isn't for your entertainment. The evidence is not for your entertainment. The evidence is because I need help turning it in. I shouldn't have to post it on YouTube. These people chose. They chose not to keep their word. They chose to victimize me while I was in a desperate situation, and still am. You get to see how desperate a situation I'm in. Drugs and alcohol. That's pretty much the people I can go to for help, because normal people in houses, treat us like we're the plague. Or they want to talk over us. They'll talk sweet, sure. They might give us $5, but what you need is help defending yourself against predators. And everybody wants to give you the I'm going to look the other way treatment. Wendell Mcphee knew a lot about what was going on. He just wanted to look the other way. That's why he's recorded. Dallas, Richmond, and Harley created multiple situations where it was unsafe for me. And no, I don't hate them for it. I just had to accept it and try to find another environment. Now, I was able to get into housing in Chapel, but the person who was supposed to help me do that was Jen Beebe. She was also supposed to help me with this court stuff. And after jumping through those hoops for like 16 months, 18 months, I jumped through those hoops and jumped through those hoops and jumped through those hoops. And then she tells me that she can't do those things. Well, you should have told me that fucking 16 months ago. I went to the places that I was told to go to. They don't do what you people keep telling me that they do. You keep sending me to these services. You looked up 5 minutes online. If you're going to send me numbers that you found after 5 minutes online, keep in mind I've probably already called those places 100 times, because everyone does that. Scroll down 300 or 400 pages. Yeah, the bottom of the barrel shit. Yeah, that's what I'm stuck calling. All these little obscure thises and that's who's, well, obviously nobody's job. Let's see if I can get my vehicle started before my phone dies. That would require finding my keys. Fuck, I hope I didn't leave them over at the gas station again. That's what I did yesterday. With my dad, it's what Brian wants when he wants it. I don't expect him to focus in at all on the help that I need. I expect him to focus in on what he wants. And he's not going to help me with what I need until he gets what he wants, which includes me pretending that he didn't do things that he did. Road flares. I got lots of emergency stuff, because you never know what kind of an emergency you're going to encounter. Right now, not being able to find my keys is my present emergency. Yeah. Wendell Mcphee was actually a part of a lot of situations, same as my dad. When I was at Wendell's, I recorded the situation, though. At my dad's, I didn't. After I left my dad's, which needed to happen, I wasn't just going to stay there and take that abuse. Get yelled at all the fucking time for trying to get him to look at evidence and help stop the abuse. No, he just wanted to argue. Wendell Mcphee didn't want to argue. He just wanted to be right a lot of the times. But you know what? When it was shown that he was wrong, he admitted it. Also, there's times where Wendell Mcphee did stuff that was way out of line and he shouldn't have done it. But instead of pretending like he didn't, he did what an adult is supposed to do. He admitted that he fucked up, he apologized, and he did something about it. No, he didn't do that in every single situation. I mean, he, just like anyone else, is capable of being stubborn as a bull. But for the most part, he's not. The fact that he talked to me about a few situations that he was not there for, and he said that he didn't care when I tried to defend myself. Well, that's not my choice for him not to care. And I'm not going to pretend it's my choice for him not to care. He cares enough to judge me, cares enough to pass judgment on me, to tell me his opinion of the situation based on only hearing one side, and there's a complete and total other side that he's not listening to. Not my fault, not my choice. Alright, well, I have this other external battery with 16% battery on it. Alright, it's plugged in. And I'm at 1% battery, so I'm going to turn this off. Good to be ready. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper and no victim left behind.